Morning. Morning, Justin. Morning, Chris. Raul, good morning. Aman, morning. Mannix, how are you? Hope you guys had a good weekend. Doug, how are you, man? I had a pretty fun weekend. Six Flags Great America. It's always a good time. Raul, to be honest with you, I personally don't care too much if the market bounces or not, because there aren't so many setups, right? So I think that's the most important part. Yes, there are some names holding up well, and those are the names that I will be watching going forward, right? You do have some names like Rambus Semiconductor holding up pretty decent. Corning, GLW, if I'm not mistaken, holding up pretty well. CLS on its earnings, still holding in there really well after a monster move. WGS, another one that's already made a huge move in the past, holding up fairly well up here. So there are some names that are holding in there well, despite the past two down days in the market. Yeah, Reddit. Yeah, Reddit hanging in there pretty well. Yeah, TMDX. Yeah, so that I think is the things you want to keep an eye on is what are the stocks holding up well despite the market despite the market falling off a little bit. So you've got a list of names, but I don't really want to execute those names until I know the market is indeed going higher. The problem when I look at like a QQQ, for instance, is look at the absolute monstrosity of this uptrend prior to that pullback, right? You're talking, 40+% move. Guys, just, naturally you're going to need right 43% low to high. So, this little down move on Friday doesn't really change the picture much. You've made a humongous effing move. You now need a little bit of digestion, a little bit of sideways. I know everybody, myself included, as you're looking at the prior highs, a little retest of that 540 area, maybe about another 20 points lower from here. From there, is that dip buyable? Maybe. But I'm not looking to quote unquote buy the dip on my favorite names. I'm looking to buy the dip, and really not even the dip. I'm looking to buy pushes, breakouts, undercut and rallies, flat-based breakouts, high-type flags on the names that have been showing most relative strength during the said correction. So it's kind of where my head's at the moment. Yeah, there was a catalyst for the market having a down day. Yeah, it was already up too much. No, I don't know. I don't know what the catalyst was. Could it have been the tariffs? Maybe the job number, right? I don't. Nobody knows. Nobody really knows. The market just looking for an excuse. I don't know that there needed to be a catalyst for the market to be down. I mean, what the hell's the catalyst for the market to have gone up 40% in 3.5 months? Yeah, Com had a big base too. God bless it. Well, Turquito, it's not that I don't buy pullbacks. I do buy them. But I buy stocks that have held up best during the market pullback because the market likes to trend up over time. But the market during those uptrends, even during the best uptrends, has down periods. Well, I don't want to buy my favorite stocks, right? My favorite stocks might not be acting well. What I want to buy is the stocks that have held up best during that downtrend for the market or that pullback for the market. So, I would like to buy the stock that didn't pull back at all during the market pullback because that's the strongest stock in the market, right? A stock that goes sideways or even goes up, like let's say it's a tech name and the QQQ goes down 7%. The stock that didn't go down at all, that's your leader. Yeah, Marius, that's actually my plan. And keep a close eye on Tesla with that pay package and see how Tesla responds to Elon getting that pay package. Yeah, Reddit looks interesting. Nice high volume close setup. Looks good. I think Reddit looks pretty damn good. There are a few ones that are hanging in there well. Yeah, a tactic to enter, a good, a pullback to an ascending moving average is perfectly fine. I think, a lot of people, they focus so much on entry tactic and think less about environment when you're using that entry tactic. You could do any entry. When the market's in a roaring uptrend and you're focused on a stock that's in a leading group, it really doesn't matter if you buy a breakout over a prior day high, a breakout over a key moving average, a break back through a prior low, as a meaningful low and a reclaim, effectively as a dip. So I think that that's not nearly as important as when you're buying it. If you're buying it when the market is indeed in an uptrend and you're focused on stocks in a leading group, that's far more important. Far more important. I'm still long Oklo. Yep. Yeah, I'm already trimmed on Oklo, so there's really not much I can do with it here. Just, let it trend the 20. I held through this pullback. No reason I shouldn't hold through this pullback. Why do stocks barcode after being acquired? Because it's going to come off the market and be acquired. My wedding's not till end of February. We got some time. I got some time. Because individual stocks make bigger moves. Right? It's like asking, why. Now, I bought TQQQ as a trade in April. But once you start to recognize what stocks are, have clean setups and look like they want to start to take off, I would rather own individual stocks. Nice to see you, sir. VSAT. Yeah, and continued strength today. Looks like this name could be bottoming. Yeah, this is kind of what you want to see. There's going to be a new crop of names. There's going to be a new crop of names. What do I think about LASR? That one made a pretty big move too. Not tight enough. After a stock triples like this, it just needs a new base. It is tightening up, though. It's getting a little tighter towards the 50 with all this sideways action here. It could be as good as a higher low. Who knows? I don't really like it, though, personally. It's too thin is what I think for me. For you, maybe not so much. Yeah, LVS and WYNN are my two favorite casino names. But again, this one's too slow. Some are too thin, some are too slow. Savvy and King, you guys want to find stocks that are somewhere in the sweet middle, right? LVS, decent looking chart. LASR, decent looking chart. One's a little thin, and one's a little slow. So that's part of what makes stock selection, so important. You don't want to be in a stock that just takes forever to go up 30, 40%. And then you don't want to be in a stock that's really not trading any volume and one person can knock the whole thing down. Yeah, I talked about them just a moment ago. There's a handful of stocks that are acting well. You're talking about names like Reddit, like Corning, like WGS, like Transmedics, Rambus, CLS. There's definitely names that are showing relative strength, but I don't know that I'm a buyer of relative strength on day two. Right? I was kind of expecting this gap up overnight, which we're getting exactly my expectation. We are a touch oversold already, which is kind of crazy because stocks were actually selling off pre the market selling off. Some stocks have been, if you look at an AEVA or if you look at a ACHR, right, there have already been names selling off before the market went on that 2-day slide. So underneath the surface, there's already a lot of kind of carnage, which is, crazy to say, but it just is what it is. So my thinking is just be patient and see if this morning push doesn't get stuffed as well. And it's okay to be patient. Like the pullback might have just started. No particular theme just yet. Gold and silver stocks also still look pretty dang good too. It's good to look at gold and say to yourself, remember, bases are what takes things higher. Gold has about the nicest base here. So if gold has the nicest base and gold starts to break out, usually commodity names, in particular gold and silver, really in crude oil, they're best to be bought against descending moving averages. So while you're still in this base, are there a few gold stocks on your radar that you could see yourself in? No, I don't consider trading Forex. It's about the hardest market in the world to trade. No reason for me to. Trading stocks, I get to compete against impatient people and people who aren't very good at their careers. or should I say their hobbies. Most people don't trading like a career. Am I able to talk about entry versus stop? Your trades have been doing well, but I know I'm not getting enough size because of where I have to buy / have my stop. So you have to think about entry and your stop as in terms of percentage. You have to think about things in terms of percentages. And remember, it's not so much about entry. It's more so about the when, right? The entry tactic isn't nearly as important as knowing you're showing up in the right environment, on the right day, in the right group, on the right stock, right? I know that's like, you're like, oh shit, really? It's like, yeah, if you're trading, when I was buying stuff in late April and in May, I couldn't miss, right? You're just like eyes closed at the free throw line and you can't miss. Why? Because the market just had a correction and I was watching the stocks that had the best relative strength near the end of that correction, right? That could hardly break March's lows, right? Names like CrowdStrike, names like Netflix, names like Uber, names like Hood, names like Palantir, names like Zscaler, names like SE. And when you're on the right names, the entry tactic hardly matters. The when and the what are far more important than the where. So, and you have to look at things in terms of percentage. And the way you get more money into the market is with more clean setups. You don't have to plow 30 and 40% positions onto one name, right? What you need is a good environment where you can find 10 and 12 and 15 names to get into. I know that sucks to hear. Or the other option is you can get yourself into like 4, 5, 6 names, and then you just add more as it's working. Add more to that name in a good environment, in a leading group, right? Like leading stocks go on for a long time. Sometimes, 6 to 8 quarters. Quarters. Not days, not weeks, not months, 6 to 8 quarters, right? 18 to 24 months. The reason Forex is the most difficult is because it's the most efficient. And I'm not going to go into the why it's the most efficient. Sounds like you might have homework to do. I trade stocks because they're the most inefficient. Or should I say, there's dislocations between value and what the current price is. Right? Hence the reason there's tons of money to be made. Forex, it's a lot more of an efficient market. Right? Inefficient markets, you have stocks like Open Door going from 60 cents to $5. Well, that creates multiple 7-figure opportunities for people who know what the hell they're doing. Right? When American Eagle Outfitters goes from, $9 to 14 effectively in a day, all because Sydney Sweeney does a magazine cover, you know that there's hundreds of thousands of dollars there to be made. Right? Forex markets don't give you opportunities like that. That's all I'm going to say about it. Yeah, Python, that's exactly right. Most momentum stocks started to fade really the last few weeks. Ever since AEVA started to fade, this is, when momentum really started to dry, believe it or not. Middle of July, maybe even a little bit sooner. Yep, that's a good observation, man. My mistake was shorting Archer or shorting Joby and not shorting Archer. That was my biggest mistake, and not getting aggressive on QS. I made decent money on a donut and a GoPro because I already knew what was going to happen there with the Coles and a Open Door and stuff like that. But could have done a little bit better on the short side of the market too, and I just didn't. But if the market's going to have a bigger pullback, I'm prepared for it too. So Yeah, AEVA was a leader in the downfall, and then I think Oster could follow in that. Could follow up a little bit more, and then TSSI is another one, and then obviously QS has been an absolute disaster. If people fell in love with this name, it's like, and then you got to zoom back, right? When the hell has this name ever held on to its gains? I mean, literally, even since 2020. When has this stock ever held on to any of these spikes? Here you go. How about never? Stocks tend to have a pattern of even ENVX. History tends to repeat itself on these turds. When has ENVX ever held on to its gains? It's like, oh, but it's a battery name. Yeah, and give a shit that it's a battery name. Stock's not known for holding on to gains. So it's just a matter of time, and then earnings is the thing that took it down because, well, it has no earnings. SYM's a nice robotic name, but it needs more sideways. More sideways. Huge move up. I mean, huge, right? You're talking already a 200+% move. You get a long 200% move like that, or should I say a quick 200% move, just needs a fresh base. No, I don't like FIG at all. I don't like FIG, not even the slightest bit. FIG's a $40 stock, in my opinion, not $100+ stock. So I told a friend of mine who got 300 shares IPO, $33, I think he was assigned at. I told him to sell it at 108. I felt a little like an asshole when it went up to 140, but I think it'll end up being the right idea. But now he's banned from trading IPOs for the next 60 days. Yeah, Tomato, there are a few gold names that I like. But before I tell you what they are, do you have any few gold names that you like? I've got a few, but I want to, test you to, put in a little bit of effort and see which ones you like. I've got two that I really like. Aman said one. AEM is one of them. All right, I'll just tell you. I like WPM. I like Wheaton Precious Metal. NEM's been a leader too. This one's just a real turtle as well. Goldfield's a little tricky. A little bit of a pain in the ass. Oh man, it's taking off today. It's already at $27. God bless it. Did it just have earnings this morning? I remember when I owned Goldfield, like way down here. This is where I first bought Goldfield. $11 way back in the day. When was this? 2022. Yeah, Nugget. Nugget, not bad. Yeah, the problem with AU, the reason I don't love AU so much, just too gappy. The daily is the most gappy of all of the dailies. Look at how many gaps there are in this daily chart. So it becomes a little, okay, direction is up on most of these names. So you could sleep well knowing that, trend is up. But man, it's a pain in the ass to try and manage risk because of all the gaps on the daily chart. That's the only real issue I see with AU. But it's in, a group that's trying to head higher. Wheaton Precious Metal, a whole lot less gaps, which is the important part for me, right? It always gives you a move through prior day high or low. But tomato, right? They all just are going higher. At least that's what it looks like. And most importantly, the underlying asset looks like it's in the cleanest base. That's what matters most. Yeah, Kinross. I like Kinross too. Probably my third favorite. Yeah, KGC. Man, I use a bunch of screeners. I use a lot of them. 30-day relative strength scan, 90-day relative strength scan, high volume scan, gap up scan, gap down scan, earnings scanner. Screener software. All my scans are built into TOS, Deep View, and FinViz. You're asking the wrong person, Tobias. My thoughts on UNH scalps. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Make money for ants? I don't care for scalps, dude. I want to try and get myself into 7-figure trades, not, baby scalps. You're not going to make 8-figure trades in your career scalping. So I don't understand why anybody would want to scalp the market. No, I don't change anything about the specs for scanning in this market. I just build a new scan. Right? But I don't really want to change anything about my scan. I want to make sure that I'm focused on stocks that are in leading groups, that are holding up best. And that's the most important part. Right? That's the most important part. What stocks are holding up best? It doesn't matter to me what group they're in. That's not for me to decide. That's for institutions to decide what groups they're going to support the most, right? I'm just looking for them to stand out. And right now, the group that stands out the most, right up near their 52-week highs, is what? No, Tobias, this isn't a scalper's paradise market, dude. The last 3.5 months have been the trend follower's dream. Look at a name like Hood, look at a name like Palantir, look at a name like CLS, look at a name like NVIDIA, look at a name like AVGO, TSM. This isn't a scalper's paradise market, dude. It's just it's opposite. It's a swing trader's paradise for real. This is where you make huge money. This isn't, maybe now over like the last few weeks, if you're positioned from early and you're just in stocks that are working, you'd want to do the least. The absolute least. Yeah, I think gold and precious metals look the best. I think the cleanest setups, the most amount of setups, are in the gold space, without question. The amount of stocks that are in the gold sector, gold and silver, that are hanging out near 52-week highs within a few percentage points, there's no group has more than gold. Yeah, Pradeep, a few of those are shorts, right? You'll actually notice that he's watching a few semiconductor shorts. So he's seeing the same thing I'm seeing. Semiconductors are starting to break down a little bit, whether it's an ASML, LRCX, AMAT, Qualcomm, etc. Again, even Spotify, Netflix. Once you start to lose the 50-day, it's more of a sell cycle than anything. How much of a loss will I withstand before bailing? It has nothing to do. There are times that I take bigger losses than others, and it's just because of where my stop is. But oftentimes my stops are like, with a 10 or 15% position, I end up risking like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3% of my portfolio, sometimes less. It's very rare that I have like a 1% portfolio loss. Yeah, Steven, they're working on it. There are times where DeepView is not perfect, but they're a new platform, so they get the benefit of the doubt until they get the little bugs and kinks worked out. But for the most part, they tend to do a really nice job. One of the favorite things that I like is when I find a nice stock and then I want to know more about the stocks in its group. They do a really nice job kind of pooling all those names together. Thanks, Cam. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for being here. SMR, I don't think it's buyable just yet. It's already made a really big move. Now it needs to build a whole new base. See this ugly move down? It kills the vibe. Now you got a big gap, and there's nothing to do with it, right? There's just nothing to do here with it at all, right? It needs to build out a whole. See how nice and tight it got right in here? See how nice and tight it got right in here? That's kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for volatility to dry back up and then it get back through a key moving average. And, right now it's just now wide and loose. Get this big dump down, it becomes wide and loose. FBE's been acting awesome. Just stay put. I would. What are my thoughts on ISSC setup? Too thin. Way too thin. Nice on this earnings gap up. Nice on a high volume close setup. Do you see how all of a sudden this thing was trading no volume? A couple 100,000 shares a day, and then all of a sudden a big pickup in volume. That closing price, $9.79, was a nice little spot to get involved on this thing. Now, it's gotten a little too extended. It is building out. It is tightening up, but it's just too thin. Right? Trades less than 10 million bucks a day. It's not really a stock you would want to get involved in just yet. It's just still too thin. Look, nobody's really trading this thing. A couple 100,000 shares a day. Affirm looking better, Upstart looking better. Yeah, Affirm's looking better, doing a nice job bouncing off the 50. I don't really see the setup just yet, unless maybe you bought it on Friday off of the 50. But Upstart, this one needs a little bit more digestion too. How much portfolio risk did I have on Oster? My stop was high of day on 60,000 shares. I think I had $30,000 in cash worth of risk. I think even a little bit less, like $20,000 worth of risk. So that, yeah, it was more of a dollar thing, but that's peanuts for what I trade with. So yeah, very small, less than 0.1%, way less than 0.1%. But yeah, DeepView is getting, Steven, it's getting a whole lot better, man. It's getting a whole lot better. They're improving. What I like is, they built the platform really for themselves at first. So, when they need improvements and updates, they do them very quickly. Yeah, MBIS, nice relative strength, but needs to get over that $55 level. Right? It's got a lot of supply right in this level. It's rejected it once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times right at that $55 level. It needs to get through there and really get pushing on some big pickup in volume. Would I take inside day setups like RSI in this market? No. No, this is too extended from the 50. You hear me talk about that a lot, Strata. You got to either put a 50 simple moving average on your chart or have a way to calculate extension from the 50. And right now it's too extended from the 50. Maybe like another week or two, and then you get going through 2016 and it could be interesting. ATAI. It's just thin. It had a really nice little setup in here, man. This is a gorgeous for if people like trading these like smaller, thinner names, this is like beautiful little high type flag. Huge pickup in volume in comparison, tightened up perfectly, and then off to the races. Yeah, like I wouldn't buy this here. A little sloppy, thin. Yeah, I just don't see the setup. Just too thin, but it wasn't bad a few days ago if you were paying attention to it. I don't know what the hell they do, but does end of day trading work in your experience? I'm unable to monitor markets during the day. I was wondering if taking positions just before the close is viable. Yeah, it is. In fact, it's the most profitable way to trade. Tomato. Buying stocks at the close and selling them at the open is way more profitable than buying them at the open and selling them at the close. That's just a fact. Stocks move a lot in the overnight session. So buying them at the close, selling them the next morning is way more profitable than buying them first thing in the morning and then selling them that same day in the evening. Just thought I'd throw that out there. So Tomato, it 100% is a very viable way to trade the markets. Again, it's about what you're buying and when you're buying them. That is far more important. But yes, buying at the close and selling in the morning is one of the most profitable ways to trade. And in fact, it has led to huge outperformance versus buying the open and selling the close. But since I'm a swing trader, I typically buy near the open and I try to hold for multiple days and I try to hold through multiple closes. So I'm trying to take advantage of a trend. But there are people who just buy the close, sell the open the next day. That's like a very common practice. And something, I've got major respect for Christian Fromhertz, and he talks about that quite a bit. I'm not too concerned about Rigetti. For one, it hasn't reclaimed the 20 just yet. And two, you've got this pretty nasty distribution candle on 731, and I'm using $16 as my stop. So I could really care less about what it's doing below $16. Above 16, then, I'll feel a certain kind of way because I'll be getting out. Market Surge is very nice too. Market Surge and the IBD team does a really nice job with Market Surge. STNG, haven't seen this name, Scorpio, in forever. Yeah, it's just trying to get back above the 200. You don't have to be in a rush to own this thing at all. This one will look a lot like INSW, so you'll have time. You'll notice how they look fairly identical. I don't think you have to be in a rush to own these names just yet, Carl. If the uptrend is going to be in an STNG or an INSW, you'll notice more names in the sector as well starting to work. Yeah, I totally understand. And this is one of those things where you have to make sure that you're in an uptrending market, but more importantly, the group that you're trading has to be a group that's also in an uptrend. I don't know, man. WK, I don't see any reason to try to be in this one. Two things I kind of like. One, it built out a really nice base, and this kind of looks like a stage 1 base. Two, I love the pickup in volume, trying to get over the 200. That's a positive. But if the move is really going to be in a real uptrend, you just wait for it to establish itself above your 200 simple moving average. Right? You don't have to be in a rush to own this thing yet. You see, I mean, even just historically, right? This thing doesn't move well outside of 2020. Outside of that, this thing has been kind of a turd. So if you're going to come in for this name, just be patient, let it establish itself above the 200, and then create a technical pattern that you understand. and more importantly, make sure that the group that it's in is acting well. I do not sell options. I do not trade options. I don't like fighting against expiration or, needing me to pick a strike price. So effectively, I'm doing things that are kind of counterintuitive for a swing trader. One, I don't want to guess how high something can go, and I don't want to guess by when it can get there. URI. United Rentals. I mean, this isn't looking all that bad. Needs a little bit more home cooking probably. But, if we can start to hang out over these highs, it doesn't look too bad. Just slow, maybe. Do I have any good resources on strategies to short? Yeah, look for things that look like long setups while you're doing a handstand. They should look good. They should look like nice long setups while you're doing the handstand position. If they look like good longs, then you got yourself a good short. You'll also have really strong shoulders by the end of the exercise. ACAD, kind of slow. Acadia Pharmaceuticals. Man, drug and pharmaceutical companies scare the shit out of me, dude. I've taken far too many gap downs in names like this. I don't know what's going on with Acadia. The only thing I could tell you about this is I don't love wedges. I don't like these little channels, right? I like price to do this. Build a flat base. Build a flat base with price building higher lows, or a bull flag where it goes up and then price kind of channels down for a moment, right? This where it kind of just does, whatever the hell this is. Well, TMDX isn't a pharmaceutical. TMDX does organ transplant. So I do like TMDX. I like their business. Yeah, TMDX does organ transplants. So a little bit different. I look at fundamentals. Yeah, what's going to give a stock the fuel that it needs to really go higher? Because if a stock is going higher and it's in a good group, I want to know why. And if a company has accelerating earnings and sales quarter over quarter over quarter over quarter, then that's how I know, that's could be a really good reason why institutions are buying it, right? But I don't want to look at fundamentals of a company as price is trending down and then saying to myself, oh, but fundamentals are good. They're making $40 million this quarter when last quarter they made 30 million, right? So they've got a nice increase. I don't like doing that. Right? I like making sure the technicals are good, making sure they're in a good group, and then I could look at fundamentals and say, oh, yeah, wow, and they've got accelerating earnings and sales. So first, I get the other two components aligned in my favor, which is they've got a good technical chart, they're in a good group, and then the thing that helps me develop more conviction on my trade is then I tell myself, oh, yeah, and they've got good fundamentals. But I don't ever look at fundamentals first and try to convince myself that it's a good looking chart or that it will go higher in the future. It already has to be in a stage 2 uptrend, and it has to be in a good group, and then I care about the fundamentals. Because the market could just be in a downtrend, the group could just be in a downtrend, and then I'm convincing myself that it's a good spot to park my money while it's in a downtrend with quote unquote good fundamentals. I don't like to do that. So yeah, bear in mind, one thing is first. Strata, to give you a better answer on shorting, shorting with the O'Neill disciples, Gil Morales. That's who I learned a lot from. Modine, yeah, another one that's acting really, really well, Modine. APLD is another interesting one. They're like moving as a data center play. I don't know that I love them just yet, but every time this thing upticks, it's on humongous volume. So got to pay attention to that. What would be the most optimal way? Yeah, selling it based on ascending moving averages. That way you take a little bit of the guesswork out. You want to take a little bit of the guesswork out. You know, maybe 2 closes below the 20 simple moving average. So Friday would have been a little bit of a red flag. If you close below, 101.40s today, that would be the kind of the sign to leave today. Yeah, I do think about position sizing. I don't want to have too much exposure to one sector. So like, let's just say I probably don't want more than 30% of my account in any one sector. Maybe a little bit more, maybe 40. But that's about it. That's like 3 stocks within the same group, right? Because the last thing I want to have happen to my portfolio is my portfolio to get deep-seeked. That's the last thing I want to have happen. And you don't know when that'll happen, but that would make me lose some sleep if that happened to me. Anyway, guys, I will see you all bright and early tomorrow morning, 7:30. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the questions. Strata, man, thank you for the questions, brother. Always appreciate them, and everybody else likewise as well. You guys are awesome. We will see you guys bright and early. Do the least amount today. Few gold stocks are looking interesting. Gold today is holding up pretty well. Will keep my eyes probably mostly on the gold sector in terms of a long, but otherwise don't have to force the issue today. Start of a new month, started off well. Cheers, guys. Trade them safely.